Welcome to On Point Manufacturing Business Talk. Over the next several weeks, we'll be sharing lessons learned from manufacturing executives who've engaged in business coaching. I am Mike Ungar, one of your co-hosts for this broadcast series. I have 35 years of manufacturing experience in continuous improvement, operations, finance, and human resources. Steve DeVries, my co-host, would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Mike. I'm Steve DeVries, your other co-host. I have been in general management for small OEMs for a little less than you, about 25 years.
That's excellent. So thanks, Steve. We're both focal point business coaches, and we pivoted from our manufacturing work with a passion to help other manufacturers grow and flourish. Steve?
And today we're joined by focal point coaches Matt Wiseman and Shawn Cheesman. Both Matt and Shawn have years of experience in and around manufacturing as business leaders. They've been coached and have coached others with a focus on improving business results. So recently, they've chosen to become focal point business coaches with a goal to help manufacturers improve their results. Matt and Shawn, welcome to On Point.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks.
All right. So I'm going to kick off questions for Shawn. So Shawn, during your manufacturing career, you had a coach. What was that experience like, and how did that impact your results?
Yeah, I had an executive coach, and she really helped me to work with my leadership team, my direct reports better. What I found is that when people come and ask me questions, I'd always answer them. I'm a engineer at heart, and what do? We problem solve. So someone comes to me and asks me a question, I'm going to give them a solution. And so what she did is she helped me to, help improve those people by not answering their questions, by, asking them more questions around, well, what would you do? How would you approach the problem? So this was all about helping them to develop their problem solving skills so that they didn't keep coming to me for answers. So one of the things that I always have to laugh a little bit of, kind of looking back of working with the coach at that time, that occasionally I would ask her, well, what are your thoughts on this? And she would turn it around and she would never answer. She would always ask me questions. Well, Shawn, what do you think? What would you do? So I never got a direct answer from her. And I actually, when I was looking to become a focal point business coach, I actually reached out to her and said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And she said, oh, I think that you'd be great at it. And then I added, well, I just have to learn to ask more questions, right? And she said, yeah, of course, that's what you have to do. But with respect to results, I think for me, working with her, I got to a point in teaching my people and coaching them as well, that they started taking on these questions themselves. And they weren't coming to me, asking all the little stuff. They only came to me asking, the bigger questions, the more complex questions that required, a little bit more discussion and things like that. So at the end of the day, allowed me to spend, more of my time, working on the strategy of the business, kind of the forward-looking portions of the business, rather than being involved in the day-to-day stuff and those people being able to make those decisions on their own, and me being confident in the decisions that they were going to make.
That's a great story. I don't know about you guys. I have, we can all share maybe some of those stories. I had a manager one time I kept going to with questions, right? This is early in my career. And one day he stopped me and he said, Mike, stop. I ask the questions. You give the answers. and his point was exactly what you said, Shawn. His idea was he was trying to develop me and my skills rather than, having to give the answers. I think that's a really wonderful story about your coach and how your coach really reinforced this idea that you have to ask questions.
What was I just have a follow up on that, Shawn. What was the relationship like between you and your coach? Like, did you enjoy
I
working
mean, it
with
was
that
very,
coach, or was it just very business?
certainly we were there from a business perspective. I had never met her until she had, become my coach. But we had a very good working relationship. So, I think as we find even in what we do as coaches, the relationship that you have is very, very important. It's not a transaction, it's a relationship. So you have to have trust in that coach and that they're going to help you and they're going to guide you and ask the right questions of you going forward.
Nice.
Yeah.
Mike?
So Matt, I wanted to jump in and just really tap into your experience as well. I know that you've led teams and you've coached your subordinates. So what were some of the goals you set for them, and how did you help them achieve that really from a coaching sort of perspective?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. One of the things I always promoted with my teams was continuous learning, and helping them expand their skill set or deepening their knowledge in a specific area. And there were ways that I'd work with the teams to facilitate this. Encouraging them to go out and find training opportunities and find ways to expand their abilities, or if there's something that an individual needed or the team needed, I would put some training material together, or I would find someone else in the business who had expertise that was of value and ask them to provide some training, or we'd go to outside sources. But really, coaching my teams on the importance of continuous learning and building their careers. And, that I always um, encourage that, even if their career objectives, the individual's career objectives, maybe was outside of the department. So in other words, for example, if I had a manufacturing engineer, let's say, in my team who wanted to, get into procurement, right? I would still find ways to facilitate that. And because in my opinion, it was always better to keep the employee in the business, even if it meant they were no longer part of my team. I could sit there, I could sit there and say, man, I can't let this person move into another department. They're so great and so critical to my group, to the manufacturing team. But ultimately, if you have to take that mentality, those people are gonna, they'll find their opportunities outside of the business. They'll go elsewhere. So to me, it was better to keep them in the business, and help them, advance their careers. Again, even if it meant moving, outside of my team.
I think what I heard you describe is really, really neat. This idea that as a coach, one of our responsibilities is to help, grow, help our clients grow, and help our, in our case, when we were leading teams, our employees grow. And I think that's really one of the great things to distinguish between a coach and a consultant, right? A consultant's going to come in to solve a problem, but as a coach, we're there to build that relationship and to help our clients or other leaders grow. And I think that's really what you just shared there, what you do with your employees, is wonderful. It makes a lot of sense. Shawn, I wanted to kind of come back to something you said earlier. And could you talk more? I know Matt was sharing how he worked with his employees. Can you expand a little bit further on your own experiences in leading your teams and how you coached your employees as well?
Yeah. One of the reasons that I got into coaching, as a full-time job is that I really enjoyed working with others. I enjoyed teaching, coaching, providing direction, sharing my knowledge. I was always one of these people that wanted to share whatever I could. I did not believe in the adage that knowledge is power, and if I've got the knowledge, I've got the power. For me, it's like the people that are going to be get better in their job are the ones that are going to learn, and I was more than happy to share, what I was doing. So, for me, working with those individuals in order to help them to improve, sharing that knowledge, challenging them, to the point that, you know, sometimes you give them a problem and they have to go work on it, and you sit there and you think, geez, you know, I could have solved that in 5 seconds, but you know, that's not going to help the employees. You know, that's not going to help them learn. That's not going to help them get better and be able to use those skills in the future. So, you know, a lot of my working with those individuals was, you know, sharing, you know, what knowledge that maybe I had that they were unfamiliar with, and then kind of letting them go do their own thing. And, you know, then coming back and telling me what they've learned. And then obviously the more times that you do it, like anything, you know, the easier it becomes for you in order to be able to take on those tasks and solve those problems and stuff like that.
Shawn, you said something really cool. You said, you know, you mentioned the idea of knowledge is power. And if you just extrapolate that a little bit more, you can use knowledge to empower others, right? And so that what you said there really resonated with me. So Matt, there's a couple of things that, you know, maybe you've taken away, or what are a couple of things that you've taken away from your manufacturing experience that you bring into your coaching practice today?
Yeah, one of the big things is dealing, and this is not even specific to manufacturing. It's just a fear of, you know, trying new things, even when, you know, even when current state is maybe not ideal for the individual or for the team. You know, if they're highly dissatisfied with current state, there's still this fear of trying to do something different. And I think as a coach, and, you know, as a manager, as a team leader, um, you know, first is you help allay those fears by taking ownership, of, okay, and say, okay, look, how about, you know, what are some new things we can try, and if it doesn't work out, then, you know, you know, I'll take ownership, right? I'll say, look, we tried this new thing, and you know, it's my fault that it didn't work out. And of course you do the opposite if things go well, right? You let the individual and or the team take, you know, get the compliments, you know, of that new thing they tried, and then how it worked out well. And so, you know, helping to address those fears, those concerns about trying that new thing, and also helping them get up past those fears by, you know, kind of painting the picture of a future state. Okay, like, hey, if this works, what is that going to look like for you? How does that help you? How's that going to feel for you if you know, are no longer in this current position? You know, kind of using the what's in it for them approach. So I think that's really big in helping people get over those concerns about, you know, doing something different, and getting past the, hey, this is the way it's always been done kind of mentality. So I think that's a really big thing when, you know, for a coach and for a manager to work through those concerns of the individual.
Nice. So, Shawn, you know, like all of us in our manufacturing careers, we've all had coaches in one form or another, and we've all been impacted by them. So, what are some of the practices that you've seen some of your coaches, whether they're formal coaches or sort of mentors, throughout your career? What do you try to emulate in your practice today?
Yeah. You know, I think like all of us, we've all had a few bad bosses that we try to forget about, but I've been very fortunate in order to have some great bosses and some great mentors, and several of them I still keep in contact to this day. I think the one thing I learned most about those mentors was patience. Um, they were patient with me at times when I was learning and absorbing the knowledge that they were sharing with me. And so subsequently, as I've become a business leader and a manager and a coach, you know, I'm doing the same thing with the people that I coach. The second thing I learned was really around communication, to be open, honest, transparent, and talk in a way that everyone in the room could understand what you're saying. The third thing was really around understanding the strengths of the individuals and not be afraid to put them into roles that may not be obvious. Over my career, I've been fortunate that I've had a few bosses that looked at me and they said, Shawn, hey, we'd like for you to go do this. And I was like, well, as a quality manager, as an example, I was like, well, I don't know what it's like to be a quality manager. And they said, well, but you have these skills that we really like, and we can teach you the other things. And I've had that happen several times in my career. And so I've emulated that as a business manager as well, is not to look at the resume and say there's 14 things that I want this person to check off on the resume to be good for this job. What are the most important things, and then what is it that we can teach for them? And then I think the last thing that has been ingrained with me with these mentors is to really show how the efforts of everyone in an organization can have an impact on the business, whether it's the goals or the strategies or anything like that. And I call it, having clear line of sight. So if it's that operator that's working on assembling a product, why is it or how is it that the job that I do today can have an impact on these goals, for the business? And that goal could be quality, that goal could be on-time delivery, it could be revenue or whatever, but being able to tie it for those individuals so that they clearly understand that what they do is important. It's not just mundane, it's important to the business.
Nice.
Yeah, that's really neat. Matt, would you also comment on maybe a couple of leaders that you've worked for or if you've seen lead, and maybe some of the things that impacted you in your career thus far?
Yeah, some of the things that Shawn has mentioned already, giving for managers, giving their employees kind of the overarching, or even working with their employees on defining overarching goals and objectives for the team, and then giving the individuals on the team and I'll call it a fairly long leash, right? Let them kind of go and do what they feel is appropriate to achieve those goals and objectives, be it for the team or for themselves. And really effective managers for me were the ones who again gave me that long leash, and then only really stepped in and kind of applied the brakes, so to speak, when they saw me going down a path that they knew was gonna not lead to good results, and otherwise just letting me kind of run with it. Also, there's one manager I can think of that I was fortunate enough to have very early on in my career that he was running the business and showed the importance and the value in setting a strategy, right? And setting a vision for the company, communicating the vision, setting a strategy for going and achieving that vision. Leveraging good communication to make sure everyone understood what that looked like and how we were going to do it, and then staying focused on that and ignoring the things that weren't in line with the strategy, weren't in line with the long-term goals and objectives of the business, and really showing how effective that could be and how that made the company, over time. This was a company I was with almost 10 years. Really made the business successful by taking that approach. So that's what I bring to my coaching practice today is, working with the individual to say, all right, let's paint a picture of the future, right? Whatever that may be it 3 years out, 5 years out. What does that look like for you? Is it that their business is, the dominant player in their market or their region or even their industry, or the future is that they're no longer in the business. They've exited the business and they're enjoying a comfortable retirement. Those are two extremes, but they both ultimately are, a vision the business leader has and it's a future that's going to require a strategy and objectives and actions that are going to be executed over time in order to achieve. So that to me is kind of how I approach my coaching practice with business owners and leaders. So yeah, I think that's, to me, that's those are some big things I've taken away from others I've had as coaches in my career.
That's great. Steve,
It sounds like you guys. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to say, I think we should probably comment on that as well if you're interested. Or are we willing to do that?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm happy to comment on it. So I think Matt and Shawn have both demonstrated, some really positive experiences with coaches and mentors and so forth. And I share that, but I also had some rough periods. And I remember the first executive coach I was ever introduced to, he and I did not click. And so earlier I had asked Shawn about what was the relationship like with his executive coach, because it's such an important thing, right? And so anybody watching this, whether you're in manufacturing or otherwise, if you're working with a coach or considering it, that relationship has got to, it's got to be positive. It's got to click, because otherwise you're not going to get the results you intended, right? And this executive coach was facilitating a 360 review. And so for anyone who doesn't understand what a 360 review is, you get feedback from people who are above you in the organizational chart, that are horizontal, alongside of you, and also below you on the org chart. And maybe it was because I didn't like what he had to say. Maybe it was just he and I did not see eye to eye. It's tough to say, but the point is that relationship is really, really important. And I think Matt talked about a little bit being pushed, and try things that I forget which one of you brought it up, but someone was talking about doing things a little bit differently, putting people into roles and positions that maybe, don't seem obvious. And that exact thing happened to me. I was general manager of a business for many years, but I was very operations focused, right? So I came up through supply chain and operations management and so forth. That was my sweet spot. And when the leader of the parent company came to me and said, your operations are dialed in, there's really nothing more to be done here other than grow the business. You have to go do business development now. And I went, like I wanted nothing to do with it. And it took me a while to figure out why he was asking someone who's never done sales or business development in his entire career or had no training on it to go and do that. Right. It was a development opportunity. It took me a while to see that. And so I think, maybe a word to the wise for anybody who considers themselves a coach or is a professional coach. I think make sure that the coachee understands the why. I didn't understand the why at that point. I'm glad he did it, right? Because it set me up for some things in the future. But at the time, it was definitely a struggle. So I would say those are my couple of stories, Mike. You're on the hot seat now, pal.
Yeah, thank you. No, I was thinking about this. I was listening to you guys talk, and it's some really cool lessons. I'm thinking of a leader who really impacted my career. His ability to always to remain true to the vision he had set. Well, of course, in our manufacturing careers, the dynamic side of it, there's always things changing, right? And challenges ahead. And so, but his ability to stay consistent on his messaging on the vision and help work through the tough spots, realizing that they all fit together. He created a way to create them all to fit together into that vision, even when you weren't sure. Somehow he made it seem like it did fit, so I really appreciated that. Then the other thing, it seems a little bit trivial, but it wasn't for me, and it's not for others, is, when you're upset about something or you're disappointed, don't start communicating. Don't write an email, give it a little bit of time to simmer, take the emotion out of the moment, or don't let the emotion get into the moment. That was something that I really struggled with on and off in my career. And I appreciated the coaching I had gotten on that, to say, hey, look, if you got to write it down, or, write the email, but don't send it for a couple of days. Let it simmer. And that really helped me as a leader be more level with the folks I was leading. And I think I really appreciated that sort of guidance as well. So a couple of lessons from my side that I learned from other leaders.
The sheer volume of unsent emails from earlier in my career for that very reason could fill an entire inbox.
I think it's great though. We're talking today about all of our experiences, and as coaches today, I'm sure you guys are the same. It's really wonderful to be able to ask those questions and share those insights with those we're working with. And I think that's, really one of the neat things, as a focal point coach that we're able to do. And it's really a pleasure to do that. We're reaching the end of our time together. And so we always like to close by sharing like last thoughts with our audience. And so, perhaps Shawn, you can start us off, and then Matt, just what are some final thoughts for our listeners about coaching that you might want to share?
I think as business leaders, and we look at coaching, if you really embrace it, there can be a lot of positive impacts for an individual. Coaching can help a business leader with priorities. It can help them to develop a great team. Can help them to understand how they are communicating with their team, or the other way, how to expect that and receive that communication from others within the team. Help them find more time in their day to do the things that they want to do, most. And at the end of the day, could be working with the leader, working with their teams in order to understand who their customers are, what's their market, how do they participate in that market in order to be able to make more money. So working with that coach can help provide direction. Once again, as we all know, as coaches, we're not necessarily going to give you the answers, but we want to kind of guide you down that path with a lot of good questions.
Nice. Matt?
Yeah, I think, and I've heard this recently from a few folks that I know and in other industries, that I look at as being good referral sources for me. In other words, so maybe business attorneys or business accountants, and that there's in some cases a negative connotation around, well, if a person is a business attorney and they recommend me as a coach to one of their clients, that it implies there's something wrong with their business. And, that's not necessarily true. I mean, it can be that, they could use a coach to help them achieve that next level of success, that they are successful today and they're just trying to get to that next level. And a coach can really be instrumental in bringing that to fruition. But just the same, if the business owner is struggling, what's the harm in having some help, right? A coach can really, help them turn the corner. And, Mike, Steve, and I'm sure Shawn as well, we've all heard those stories about other coaches within Focal Point who have, help business owners bring their companies back from complete failure, and and achieve success. And so, why not? Why not engage with a coach? Regardless of the situation we're in, they can only yield excellent results, right? As Steve said, if the fit is great, then there's tremendous opportunity there. So yeah, I think don't hesitate to consider coaching as a way to really help your business and your career thrive.
Well said. So
if I could add one more thing,
yeah,
that
fire away.
That made me think of one of the things that I always enjoyed about working with small manufacturing companies is that you could make change pretty quickly. And if you figured out if it didn't work, you could undo it pretty quickly. I worked in some large organizations where it would take me 2 years to make change. But being a business leader in a manufacturing small business, I mean, you could decide today, oh, we're going to do something in a different way and do it. And I think a lot of times, that's probably the experience that we've had in working with smaller businesses, and especially manufacturing businesses, that there might be hesitancy in order to make change. But my God, if you make a mistake, you can undo it pretty darn quick as well.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Well, so we're going to start to wrap up, everybody. So today we've been speaking with fellow Focal Point coaches, Shawn Cheesman and Matt Wiseman. You can see their contact information below. If you'd like to email either of them, feel free to grab those or check it out after the recording. They've been sharing their personal experiences in manufacturing as well as in coaching and being coached, and why they chose to become Focal Point coaches. So a big thank you to both of you. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing those experiences. I know Mike does as well. Matt and Shawn, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, and for our audience, Focal Point Business Coaching is the world's premier coaching and business skills training organization. We provide business performance coaching and training to business owners and executives, not only in the U.S., but around the world. We do this through one-on-one coaching in an environment of continuous learning, positive support, and results-driven accountability. If you'd like to connect with Steve or myself, here are our emails addresses. So we'd be happy to speak with you as well. And as Steve said, this concludes this episode of On Point Manufacturing Business Talk. Please join us for our next broadcast on November the 12th. Our guest will be Trevor Burnett. Trevor is the general manager of Behringer Aero US, and we're going to be talking about the impact of long-term business coaching relationship can have on his business and yours as well. So until then, thanks for joining us and have a great day. And thanks, Matt and Shawn, Steve.